You're back with us on America's Forum, and we're glad to have you. I'm J.D. Hayworth.
And I'm John Bach. And J.D., we've talked a lot about these biblically themed films being Hollywood blockbusters, Noah, the Son of God. Well, now there's a more serious project being released that doesn't allow for interpretation, as we saw with the film Moa. The film is called Irreplaceable. It's a documentary that examines why all humans have a yearning to be part of a family and looks at the forces that can contribute to the breakdown of the family unit. The film holds up the biblical design for family and brings to the culture an aspirational view of why God's design for the family is still the best design and how people of faith can preserve family values. Now consider these facts right here. In America, there is one divorce every 13 seconds. Half of all American children will witness the breakup of a parent's marriage. Approximately 1/3 of U.S. children live without their fathers. 85% of all youths in prison come from fatherless homes. 80% of young gang members come out of fatherless homes. Now, the film will be released to theaters for a one-night event on Tuesday, May the 6th. The event will include a panel discussion featuring prominent faith leaders, and that discussion will be hosted by Focus on the Family President Jim Daly.
Jim, we welcome you as you join us by phone today on America's Forum, and let's begin with creation, so to speak. The idea of creating this documentary, Irreplaceable, where did the idea come from?
Hey, JD, good to be with you. You know, it started probably back when we did the Truth Project. We had about 3.5, 4 million people that went through that video curriculum about 5 to 6 years ago. But we only covered the family in 1/2 of an episode out of 13. And so we thought, from that point, we thought, you know, in the future, we'll need to come back and elaborate on God's design for the family, what He intended, why the design works best, and really why social science supports that. No matter what liberal scientists are saying out there about the family, when it gets down to it, children do best when they're with mom and dad, and that's the bottom line.
And speaking of dad, and Jim, during my days in Congress and the Ways and Means Committee, there was a lot of thinking that the federal government needed to be involved in what we're now calling the Fatherhood Initiative. Has it gotten to the situation where that is a proper role of government? Your take on fatherhood, or at least federalizing, if you will, the notion of promoting positive family values with a fatherhood initiative?
I think it's a good step. I'm always leery and anxious if the government's trying to organize anything. Just look at Obamacare and the fiasco we have with that, or the IRS, or go right down the list. The good thing about the role of government is to do what it can to lift up the natural family, because you know what? 97% of us live in a natural family environment. It may not be perfect. It may be single moms and single dads at this point raising kids. But generally, as far as I know, you still need a man and a woman to create children. And I think everything a government can do to support that. Back in the Reagan administration, you might remember this, J.D., Dr. Dobson was pretty instrumental in asking President Reagan at the time to do, in essence, for the family what we do for the environment. And that was to require, every time a bill went through Congress, that it would require a family impact report, similar to an environmental impact study. If this legislation goes through, what will be the impact on the family? I think that's a brilliant thing to come back to. I think President Clinton did away with that when he came into office, but it'd be great, Democrat and Republican, to come back to what do we need to do as a government to protect and lift up the natural family, because you know what? They're the ones that pay the bills.
And speaking of paying the bills and the situation with government, there are those who look back at our history and argue that the way, under grounds of compassion, the notion of what we did in terms of payments, we call it TANF, a government acronym, temporary assistance to needy families. Some of that, the way those funds were conditioned, it made more sense for men to leave so that families could be taken care of. So the government, it has been argued, starting in about the 1960s, really helped to, for lack of a better term, subsidize fatherless families. I don't know, I guess that's in the past, but as we're looking to the future and the changes we are seeing culturally, an interview last hour, we were lectured on tolerance and the seeming intolerance of, quote, conservatives and conservative Christian families? Has intolerance become the new buzzword or the new attack term for those who embrace the notion of traditional marriage and traditional families?
I think that's the nicer of the terms out there. I think the harsher terms would be bigot and homophobe and all those kinds of things, simply when you disagree with the redefinition of marriage, etc. But I think, I do give President Obama credit in this fatherless space, because he has been one of the more aggressive presidents to say we need to talk about the impact of fatherlessness. I think he's held 2 or 3 summits at the White House. I just wish it parlayed more into action. But again, we can't look to government, and that's one of the good things that conservatives are known for. We don't expect government to solve these kinds of problems, and I think we have to look to changing the heart of the culture, which is, again, back to the core reason we wanted to start the debate by even creating the documentary Irreplaceable, really to get people to shake the cobwebs out of their head to say, yeah, what is most important in life? And when it gets down to it, it's family. And it's both the source of our pain as well as our joy. And I think we should be doing far more as a culture to encourage families to do a better job of helping husbands and wives stay together, stay married, fight through the tough stuff. I think it was University of Chicago did a study of 2 groups, both headed toward divorce. One group pulled back, got counseling, went through it. 5 years later, 85% of those that fought through their issues were happier than they were 5 years before. Of the group that went forward and got their divorce, 80 or 85% of them were less happy 5 years after the divorce. Life has ups and downs. Marriages have seasons, and we're doing a very poor job in a very narcissistic, self-centered culture to say, you know what, when it comes to marriage, what God's really doing here is trying to teach us to be more selfless in that relationship, so that we can learn to be more like God in that way, to give to others.
Jim, only about 30 seconds left here. Can you tell us again where we can go, a website for more information about the one-night event and what follows?
Yeah, irreplacablethemovie.com. You can order tickets there. Over 700 theaters around the U.S. are hosting it one night, May 6th at 7:30 in all time zones. I hope lots of people come out to support family.
Well, Jim Daly, from one JD to another, we thank you very much for your input, and we look forward to visiting with you again very soon. Thanks so much.
Love to do it.
Yeah,
Take care.
There's no question there's a real need from kids to find a family, whether they can find it in their home or elsewhere. Great projects there. We'll be back with more after this.